So thank you very much, everybody, for spending a Wednesday night with us today. I know there are so many things that we need to do, and I'm really appreciative that there are so many parents who are interested to find out how they can be better at every stage. That positivity and that drive for growth, it's really refreshing to see. Um, so today, I'm really happy to be a part of this panel where Fairview International School is working with Audra to bring you a conversation about the other pandemic. Now we know one pandemic, COVID, it's been hitting us, it's horrible. We got our MCO happening, but there is another pandemic that is quietly creeping up on all of us, and it's affecting everyone with kids. It's the internet and gaming addiction. But actually, frankly, I think it's not just hitting the kids, it's probably hitting the adults too. I know that I've used too much of it at one time, and I need a correction too. So without further ado, I'm going to share with you the people in our star-studded panel. First of all, we have Teacher Ken. Give us a wave, Teacher Ken. Teacher Ken is a lawyer, licensed headmaster, and a certified HRDF trainer. As a parenting and teacher trainer, he guides overwhelmed parents and teachers who want to bring up happier, healthier, and more successful children. Teacher Ken teaches essential parenting skills and classroom management skills in public or corporate seminars and private coaching sessions. Welcome, Teacher Ken. I'd love to introduce as well, Catherine Anila. Catherine started her journey as a child advocate when she was 11 years old. Wow, Catherine. With Childline Foundation Malaysia, and she advocates for spaces for child participation and champions digital resilience. She's a part of the Child Friendly Cities Initiative, mentoring the Municipal Child Council. In 2018, she founded Vanguards for Change, a youth-led NGO with young people ranging from 10 to 21 years old who are passionate about child rights advocacy and digital wellness. Welcome, Catherine. I'd love to introduce Katharina Tay. Katharina Tay graduated with an honors degree in finance from the States and worked as a trader with Merrill Lynch. She then moved on to SAP and IBM, where she experienced many interesting roles. Several years ago, Katharina made the bold decision to choose her children over her career, a decision that carries invaluable wisdom and that she will share with us today. She's currently a housewife and occasionally working for IBM as an advisor. She's happily married with two children aged 14 and 11, both in Fairview International School, and is one of our Fairview Angels. Welcome, Katharina. Could you give us a wave? I'd love to introduce as well, Ola Lind. Ola is a veteran, a real veteran of the gaming and telecommunications industry. His experience carries him from across the globe, from Africa to the US to Latin America, all over the place, and now to Malaysia. He's the Director of Business Development at Dotlines and actively champions solutions that protect our children through a variety of home-based solutions like Audra. And we're going to share with you a little bit about what is this Audra as well. Okay. So everybody completed a survey just before they came in. And these are the results of the survey. It's always fun to find out what everyone's thinking. So 86% of everybody thinks that their children spend too much time on the internet. 58% think the gadgets are hindering social skills. Of course, you can't talk to people when something's in the way. And 75% of their children are exposed to unfit online content. Now, I'm not going to say what that is, but we all know what that stuff's going to be. 75% think unfit content addiction will cause psychological problems. I think you're right, guys. And 41% think that their home IoTs are at risk. Imagine your vacuum cleaner being taken over, or your digital camera, your CCTV being hacked into. 91% of you think it's about balance, and 91% of you want to take a stand. Well done, everybody. So what's the problem? I'm going to give everybody a little bit of context about what we're going to be talking about today. So a bit of digital addiction. And there's two things we're going to go through, like digital addiction and gaming addiction. They usually end up overlapping, but here's something about digital addiction. It's about 6% of the population if you capture the whole world. But really, since only 39% of the world has access, it's actually about 15% of the accessible population. That means 15 out of every 100, a little bit more than 1 out of every 10 people are addicted. In 2019, 3.4% have severe internet addiction. 40% have low-level addiction. That's amazingly high a number. And 32% have moderate level addiction. Now, together, that's 70% of all of our kids have some degree of addiction going on. 65% of junior high school students belong to the internet addiction high risk group. And 6.5% were in the severe addiction group as well. What do we see when kids, what symptoms are we looking out for when there's digital addiction? Altered attention span, physical effects, like maybe they'd be looking, getting overweight or not getting enough exercise, social withdrawal, isolation. I'm not going to rattle off the full list. You can get that on the internet, but it can be pretty severe. Gaming addiction, very common as well. Up to 1 to 10% of all gamers have compulsive addiction issues. And there are a lot of people who play games. Males, unfortunately, between the ages of 18 and to 24 are at the highest risk of gaming addiction. And what we're really looking for is things like sleeplessness, because gamers play all night long, fatigue, disruption in eating habits, and of course, that social isolation. So if you really want to know lots about the addiction symptoms and so on and so forth, there are plenty of websites on the internet that you can get on and find out. So we're not going to go there. But what we are going to go into are 2 essential questions. And I'm going to start with the first question we're going to pose to everybody. So the first question was going to be, what effects have you seen in your personal experience when our youth overuse gadgets and the internet? So what are the effects? So Teacher Ken, why don't you start us off?
Hello, hi everyone. Good evening. I'm hoping that you're having a very productive day. Thank you very much, Dr. Winston, for that very warm welcome, and welcome everyone to this panel. All right, ladies and gentlemen, today I am going to talk about some of the effects when our youth overuse gadgets and the internet based on my personal experience. And I feel that the best way to go and get this point across is by telling you 1.5 stories. Why? Now, why 1.5 and why not 2? In a short moment, you will find out. All right, now this first story is actually a very dramatic story about my star student. Now, back when I was teaching children, I used to go and teach this really bright young lady, a very impressionable young lady, a very presentable young lady. And she was really good in her academics. She was skipping years and she was really the darling of the school, very helpful in class, and just an angel, an all-around angel. Everyone loved her. Now, the lockdown happened. And throughout this time, I didn't see her at all. I was not in touch with her at all. Now, one day, I got a call from her mother. Her mother desperately needed help, because this student of mine, this little girl, right, she was, I think, 11, but she was already in year 9 because she skipped a couple of grades. And the school was threatening to expel this student. The school was threatening to expel my student, a star student. And when I heard this, I was absolutely shocked. So as it turns out, my student was not attending online classes. She refused to attend all the online classes, and even when she did, she would turn off her camera. She refused to answer the teacher. She refused to respond to any form of stimulus from her friends or from her classmates or from the discipline teacher even. It got to such a point where the parents were paying exorbitant fees every month, and she would just refuse to attend. So I went a bit deeper. I went to their home, and to my great shock, guys, all right, I saw that her face was scarred. And previously I mentioned that she was a very presentable young lady. Yes, she was. She was very presentable, a very petite young lady. And to my absolute shock, her entire face was scarred and swollen, as if she had just been in a street brawl. So I asked her, what is going on, you know? I'm not going to give her a real name, so I'm just going to use the name Jane, all right? Jane, can you tell Teacher Ken what is going on here? And so she told me, Teacher Ken, please don't tell my parents, all right? But I think that I'm addicted to gaming. So as it turns out, every night she would sneak down from her room and start to go and play games. The games she was playing was Roblox and Minecraft. I'm sure that these names are very, very familiar to most of us here tonight. And she couldn't help herself. She would play until 4 o'clock, fail to wake up the next day for online school, and the vicious cycle would continue. Now, it is multifactorial. I'm not saying that all of this happened because she was addicted to the device and addicted to games. There are other reasons which I uncovered later. But, all right, why did she have scars on her face? How does gaming end up with her having scars on her face and having a swollen face? Well, it turns out that she would scratch herself in her sleep because her face and her eyes were so exhausted. She would scratch herself, and this is compounded because she naturally already had an eczema problem. And her parents had no idea about any of this. So the next thing I would do, right, is naturally to speak to the parents. I asked them, do you know that this is happening? And they said, actually, they know. Actually, they know. And I said, okay, what is your plan to go and handle this? And they said, we can't. We don't know how. When we approach her, she's really defensive, she's really fierce, and she threatens not to eat if we take away her device. She threatens not to eat. And I say that, okay, guys, all right, as parents, you have to understand the balance between reinforcement and correction, consequences, right? Some of the psychologists love to go and call it punishment or correction. I prefer to use the word consequences. When you want to discourage certain behaviors, you must not be too afraid to issue consequences over here. And obviously, okay, over here, your daughter is going to rail against your consequences. She is going to threaten, all right? She's going to threaten to go and starve herself if you take away the device. Now, how did we handle this? Maybe I'll go and talk a bit more about it later, but I want to tell you another half of the story. Now, the other half of the story is when I really realized that we're facing a serious issue over here. And that was when I was still teaching, and I was teaching a group of year 9s. These are 15-year-olds. And I remember very clearly the moment when I realized that we are facing a serious problem. I asked my group of year 9s to write a very simple essay. I asked them to go and write about your hobbies, my hobbies. Now, to my great dismay and to my great shock, many people in the class, actually 100% of the class, were unable to progress beyond the first 2 paragraphs. In fact, I remember to this day very clearly, one of the girls coming up to me and shyly asking me, Teacher Kian, what is a hobby? And she didn't mean it in the sense that she didn't know what are hobbies, but she wanted me to define what constitutes a hobby. And I said, what do you mean? And she says, Teacher Kian, actually, when I go home every day, I just play 勇者王耀, which is one of those online games. I think it's called Mobile Legends in English. And that's the only thing I do. Does that count as a hobby? And I say, how, besides that, what else do you do? I said, certainly you can't play Mobile Legends the whole day. And she told me, I also watch YouTube. And I said, very good. Okay, what type of YouTube streamers do you follow? And she said, oh, I follow 5-minute crafts. And I say, certainly you must do some of the crafts, right? And she sheepishly said, no, I don't. I just watch it purely for the entertainment value. And then I realized, yes, a lot of our children like following art influencers. If you think about it, nowadays, the average length of a video on TikTok is dropping to be below 1 minute. Actually, TikTok actively encourages its creators to keep the video below 1 minute. Let me ask you, ladies and gentlemen, what possible skills, art or otherwise, can our children possibly learn from a 1-minute video? It's just not very practical if you think about it. And so then I realized that all of my children, all of my students did not have any traditional or conventional hobbies. And I realized that this was a very big problem, ladies and gentlemen, because if you do not have hobbies, how do you know what you like? How do you know what you don't like? A great part of growing up and entering the workspace is knowing where you want to end up in. And if our children no longer have conventional hobbies because the device has taken over their lives, how do they know what they don't like? How do they know what their passions are? How do they know what they want to change in the world? right? And not to mention all the skills which hobbies bring with them. Social skills, negotiation skills, organization, even hobbies like stamp collection. You have to negotiate with your counterparty when you're trading. You have to go and organize your stamps in a certain way, which would make sense to the collector, right? Our children are being deprived of a lot of fundamental skills. Now, I don't even have to go and I really, really, really dreaded asking that same class the next question. Do any of you have pets? And I already know the answer, right? Most of my students, their parents, both of them are working. They really do not have the commitment or the ability to take care of any sort of pets. And we all know, we all came from the generation where we grew up with pets. And we learned so many important skills from taking care of pets. Empathy, emotional regulation, taking care of another living being, how to overcome that sadness when our pets inevitably have to pass away, right? Our children are really being deprived of a lot of all these skills. Now, I think that this would be a very good point to go and pass it back to Dr. Vincent, and maybe we can hear from some of the other panelists. Dr. Vincent, maybe back to you.
Thank you very much, Teacher Ken. Okay, could that's a fantastic experience from yourself, Teacher Ken, about students. I think it's quite shocking when kids can't even write about what their hobby is. I'll share with you something very similar. In our school in Fairview, we have a lot of device usage in there, and with devices, because all of our kids have to use it, every child has access to a device from the primary school all the way up to the secondary school. And unfortunately, since a lot of our kids come from traditional education, they've never been taught about how to manage their devices. Their devices are simply an item of playing around. And just like exactly what you said, I can totally connect there. They fall into that trap and they fall into it readily. And exactly as you said, parents don't know what to deal with it because they didn't prepare themselves for this ahead of time. They weren't thinking about it, unfortunately. So that's one classic one. The second thing is I want to share the issues that we see in school. Even though the child overuses the device, sometimes I don't think it's necessarily the device we need to be looking at. Because as we dig in, and my background being in psychiatry before, I worked a heavy amount in the pastoral health sections and I pay a lot of attention there. We tend to find that a child that overuses devices tends to be, they tend to have an unmet need. And if we look hard enough and we go beyond the obvious, you will see what that unmet need is. And so most of our practices, when we see an issue developing, it isn't to immediately slap a person on the hand. That's called punitive discipline. We practice something called restorative discipline, where we try and restore the child. No, enough about that. But essentially, we need to go deeper into why is the child doing that. And very often, the device is not the evil one here. The problem is fear of expectations. Maybe Jane's mother wanted her to get too high a score and she was terrified of going home. Maybe it was social isolation, wanting to mix in with their friends. There's always an unmet need sitting behind there. And that's what we usually see. So with that, maybe taking a more personal approach to things, could we maybe hear from a parent's point of view? Katharina, could you maybe chime in on this? Like, what have you seen when children are doing this, overusing gadgets and the internet?
Hi, Dr. Vincent. Thank you for having me here. I have two children. So I think you rightly said that we did not prepare ahead of time when we are faced with these challenges of overusage. Parenting is a journey. So when we're faced with it, we learn along the way. For us, the biggest challenge was when they were younger. Now my two children are teenagers. So about 4 or 5 years ago, I will tell you two stories. The first one is my daughter, Megan. Megan, when she was young, I was still working round the clock every day, every night. So she did not talk. She couldn't utter a word. She can't call mom. She cannot pronounce key. no words at all until she was 4 years old. So we took her to the speech pathologist, and she was diagnosed with lack of interactive stimulation.
Katharina, I think we lost you there. Okay, we're gonna get back to Katharina. Oh, we're gonna get back to Katharina. Ola, could you share with us? Oh, wait.
So as you rightly said, there is a reason behind.
Katharina, I think we lost you for a minute there.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah, now you're pretty clear.
So I was talking about Megan.
Yeah.
Diagnosed with lack of interactive stimulation. Yeah. And the reason is because we were spending so much time working, and she was left alone with the nanny and the TV. And most of the time, the TV is her only stimulant, which is not enough. So what I did was we made a big decision to stop work. I stopped work to spend more time just to talk to her and stimulate her. And surprisingly, within just 3 weeks, she began to talk. So that was the effect that we experienced from Megan, and we were glad that we took a big decision to address the issue quickly. For Ryan, it came when he joined Fairview. His primary years, he was from another school, no iPad. They used the school iPad. In Fairview, he was so happy that he get to own an iPad in grade 6 primary school. And there was many experiences where when I picked him from the school, I had to wait in the car for 90 minutes. One time he said he had to stay back, 2 times he had things to do, but over a period of time, then I realized that he lost his sense of time because he was playing games on the iPad. So the second effect that I'd like to share is they lose the sense of time when they are playing games. That was my 2 experiences.
Absolutely, Catherine. Thank you for that. Yeah, there are some serious issues, and I personally know of many situations when parents were sending me messages to go and search for their kids around the school, and I would run around the place and I would find a kid hiding in a classroom playing with the iPad under the table. There's way too many of those examples, but what do we do about that? We're going to address how do we solve this issue in a little bit. Ola, could you give us a little bit of perspective about, what do you think is the issue over here, and what happens when kids play too much with devices and the internet?
Well, speaking from my own experience of working a lot, utilizing phones a lot, and my son utilizing internet and too much in my view, and it builds a lot of negative energy in the sense of when you try to have a conversation or something, they don't pay attention, and then afterwards they try to escape further on into the gadgets and the internet. They spend a lot of time during night sneaking up, waking up early morning or very, very late, and continuing utilizing the internet and so on. So it creates a lot of negative energy and no structure. And that creates a lot of, in my case with my son, a lot of tantrum, in the sense of, he became very, very aggressive, very, very quickly in subjects. He immediately went from 0 to 100 as soon as you were in the possession of talking about or not restricting regarding the gadgets and so on. I think a very important thing is to set the boundaries in a relationship together, meaning not just to punish, like you mentioned in the beginning there, and so on. It's about an understanding between me and my son, in my case, and explaining, okay, here is the rules, here is how I see it, here's what you are doing, and this is how it affects you. And then having dialogue about the subject and letting him be part of that process, because he's old enough to take be part of that process and understand why he shouldn't be up all night long, because it will affect his study time the next day and moods and other things. So, and I think this happens to everybody in some way or shape or form. I mean, everybody has an experience today that we didn't have 5 years ago or 10 years ago when gadgets was not around. I see the same kind of trend when BlackBerry came along. If I'm not the oldest guy in this conversation, but BlackBerries was the same. It was even called Crackberry in the sense you could never leave the device as an adult and working professional, because it's so easy. You had to look at the screen. So I think we as parents fall into the same trap immediately as our kids does, but we don't classify it the same way, because for our kids we see it as a problem. For ourselves we see it as part of our duties or our job, or we have to do it as an excuse to do it and look at it all the time. So it's a big problem, and everybody is guilty, I believe, both parents and the kids. And I'm happy to be in this group today to find the answers of different experiences, how at least 1 or 2 points can be addressed that can put everybody at ease and find a solution moving forward.
Absolutely. Thank you for that, Ola. Thoroughly appreciate what you're saying over there. Maybe it's the right time to hear from the voice of a child advocate now. Catherine, would you do us the honors and speak from the other side?
Hi everyone. I just saw the chat coming from Creative Kid, who said that kids look to the parents, and that's exactly what I was thinking of. You know, I don't know how many of us have received this forwarded text on WhatsApp, but I remember reading it once. It was about a child who wrote an essay about, okay, the title of the essay was, "If I could be something, I would be." And so apparently in that essay, the child said that if I could be something, I would be a smartphone. And the gist of it all is because the child yearned for the attention and the love that the parents give their smartphone. So I think I just like to lay that out there, because that's exactly it. Children look to the parents. And Ola, you spoke about boundaries. Teacher Kian, you spoke about consequences and reinforcement, right? Reinforcement is a psychological term where there's positive reinforcement and negative reinforcement. And this is something we also need to look into, because what the games or anything that the devices give children is that positive reinforcement, those hormones that kicks in, you know. I saw somebody else, I think it was RC Chinatown, who mentioned that that all these companies, they hire psychologists just to make sure that, you know, it addicts children. And that is so true, because whatever you play, it kicks up your dopamine, it kicks up your serotonin, right? And yeah, and Kat, I really empathize with your example, and I'm also really happy that things are better now. But so coming from I wouldn't say a child's perspective, just a general perspective, my perspective. I also had my tablet taken away from me when I was 14 at that time. And looking back right now, I think that my mother taking it away from me was the right thing to do for me at that moment, because there was conversation involved. She did talk to me, she explained, and despite all that, I was just being stubborn. So that is a personal example, right? But if I were to look at the challenges that addiction or online or gaming addiction causes, I think one of the striking challenges that I can think of is the mental health of the child, and how it can also simultaneously affect the behavioral change of the child. For example, when when the child does not fully understand what the power of this device is. And as I myself am an aunt as well. And so I look to my nieces and my nephew as my younger siblings, right? And I talk to them, I mentor them on their Instagram use, for example, and their just overall social media use. And if we were to just give them little hints of the dangers of social media, of the dangers of addiction, but not allow them to fully understand, we are just feeding their curiosity. And I personally had to experience that. I was watching a movie with my niece once, and it was, I know it's not related to addiction, but this is just an example of media, right? Of screen time as well. I was watching a movie with her, and I have this problem, you might call it, of reading through movie plots while watching or before watching the movie. Like, I just want to know what happens before it happens. So I was just reading through the movie plot, and I got to know that there was scenes of sexual abuse and even incest that comes late on during the later part of the movie. And so I explained to them. My niece is 10 now, and this happened, I think, about a couple years back. And I explained to them. I told them, okay, you know what? Let's stop watching the movie. There are disturbing scenes later. I did mention sexual abuse. I did mention, I did not use the word incest, but I did say that there was very disturbing sexual scenes which aren't healthy for your mind. I stopped there. And about a week later, her parent, my sister, told me about how she was curious and she was looking through things on YouTube. Now, this is definitely not her fault, not my niece's fault. And I take this as an experience which is worth learning from, because I realized that just having that conversation once is not enough. And this, going back to my point of mental health, when you keep continuously doing this, you do not accompany them through and empower them to be digitally resilient themselves, they're just going to have to find their way on their own, and that would lead to a lot of frustration. And someone, I think it was Teacher Kian's example, right, of Jane being very defensive. That is natural. When they find their way on their own, they're just going to be defensive, and they're just going to push parents or just any protecting figure away from them because they themselves feel alone. And I think that's why the biggest challenge would be that, and also trying to bridge that gap and trying to be able to reach out to your child, to be able to hold their hand and accompany them through. Yeah.
So how do we do it, Brenda? How do we reach out and bridge that gap? We do adult speak. How do we do that? Some of us have completely forgotten how to speak to a child. Maybe give us some pointers. How do we get down on our knees to do that?
Maybe for starters, it is to look at your own screen time, for example. That is one thing. And another thing is, it cannot happen overnight, and it cannot just be one conversation. One conversation where you sit them down and you talk to them, okay, today I'm going to talk to you about risks of online addiction, of gaming addiction. Today I'm going to talk to you about the birds and the bees. That's one conversation is not enough. It has to be a continuous process of accompaniment and it has to start young, because if we think that children as young as 8 or maybe children as young as 5 are too young to understand, for example, too young to understand pornographic imagery online on YouTube, you are wrong. Because they will come across it. We have the statistics. I don't quite remember it, but we have the statistics that children as young as 5 if they are watching YouTube, they would definitely come across one ad or something like that. And it's not just YouTube, it's on any browsing page, right? So it has to start young, and that conversation has to be continuous. Only then you don't have to try so hard to build a bridge. Rather, that bridge would already be there. You just have to work on maintaining it and strengthening it throughout.
So let's see. Look at my own screen time. Can I use the word relationships? Establish a good relationship with your kids before the danger
Definitely.
zone arrives, and keep on having those conversations. No one-offs. Just keep on going at it, and start young. That's my takeaways there.
I have one more example. It triggered when you said before the dangers arrive. I thought of how this is one thing that I posted on Facebook once, and that's how I remember it. I saw it on my memories, but my niece was 2 at that time, and she asked for my father's phone because she wanted to go on YouTube to watch ABCs, a video on ABCs, and this was when she was 2 years old, right? So I think the dangers have already started. We cannot, there is no before it starts, it has already started. Because you see, we have phones, we have smart TVs, we have everything all around us. You know, babies grow up in this environment. Maybe 10 years ago, 15 years ago, you can say that. But right now, everything, we live in a digital world already. There's no escaping from it.
Thank you very much, Catherine. So I'm gonna ask, like, okay, so there's that part where we got to do a lot of stuff. We got to maintain those relationships, but I need some help. Ola, do you have something for me to help me out here as a dad, as another parent? I need some help. Emergencies.
Well, I think, as we've discussed here, the human factor and the communication part is the number one. To have that straight, honest talk and communicate honesty with your children. I mean, you cannot go away from that. That commitment has to be there. Secondly, obviously, there is technologies that can be utilized to address 1, 2, 3 of these issues in a very non-intrusive way, but in a way for the parents to better manage the screen of their children. Why I'm saying the screen of the children? The problem is, I believe, is that when somebody has the tablet or the mobile phone or the laptop computer, most of the time they're spending by themselves. And most of the time, in my experience with my son, is that you get a chat from a friend. Say, oh, it could be a funny picture, it can be anything. But that road of clicking on something can go very quickly the wrong direction and very, very deep into the deep space of internet and bad content and fraudsters and many, many things when it comes to child pornography and other things, where a lot of these people hiding behind these kind of things, adding on and then pulling in the different children into this space and so forth. I'm not going to go down there today, but so having a tool that can set basic guidelines through a habit of utilizing internet, just as you do in school. You set up a structured schedule. This time you have 1 class, 2nd class, 3rd class, different subject. In between you have your breaks and so forth. Same you can do actually on your internet at home. And that's why we founded and built this technology, Audra. It is a help tool that can utilize internet, my rules, my internet. It's saying that me as a parent, okay, I have this option. I can choose that option that fits me best for my situation, how I want to control. I don't want, for example, my children to spend more than 4 hours on internet at home after they have done their studies. And having a tool that can manage that, not trying to run after them and take the tool away from them or shut down the internet, etc. Or just having that option that blocking websites. When I say blocking websites, what happens most of the time is that, oh, this website is bad because there was a lot of things happen and so on. But what Audra does is it blocks the whole category, meaning that, for example, sexual content. I do not want my children to be able to go to a website with sexual content. Then, with one click, you can block all the categories of sexual content. Or if it's hacking, or if it's violent websites, or whatever category like adware, malware, and so forth. Because obviously, most of the time in games and other places, adware is where the hidden threat is lying. Yeah. Because it's from there they actually take the child into a journey into the deep space that can go very wrong very quickly. Mm-hmm. Sometimes it's sexual content, sometimes it's gaming, sometimes it's utilizing the billing capacity of the parents to use their telecom account to actually buy a lot of digital content in a game, for example. Yeah, there is many examples where the thousands of dollars of digital content has been bought from a game without the knowledge of the parents through Google Pay or other means. So there is many of these issues, and every family has their own issues. I mean, I'm saying it not in a bad faith way. Issues in the sense of there is always going to be an obstacle in a relationship, parents, kids, internet, and gadgets. We will never get away from that. But be able to having a secure solution that can actually help you secure from threats, digital attacks of your internet or gadgets, not to make sure that they get punished with a lot of malware and other things that makes havoc, and setting some basic rules how to manage your internet digital wellness at home, to spend maybe more time with the kids and setting these rules. So this is where we come from Audra's side. And I do not want to talk about technology in the sense of our product, but I think it helps a little bit. And I think that is the most important, is taking the first step. It's about taking that step of having that conversation with the kids first, because you can never get away from that part. Secondly, is to actually address the technology part with technology, maybe to assist on the things that you cannot be 24/7 monitor with your own eyes, with your gadget, with your kids, because you're not going to be with them 24/7 in your house. I mean, that's reality.
Would you like me to run the video?
Please do. Just a quick.
Yeah. Okay, so for everyone that's listening, Audra is a partner of ours in this webinar, and they have a solution to help all of us beleaguered parents. I'm just going to run this video. You get to watch it.
Younger kids now, they get depressed easily as well. They are constantly on their gadgets, like on the internet, and looking down, and no life, and that is their life. And when they wake up in the morning, that's the first thing they do.
Teenagers, I mean, that's a whole other level when they lock themselves in the room for hours on end on their phones and on the internet. Yeah, really, I mean, God knows what they're doing, right?
But unfortunately, security and the Internet of Things aren't often found in the same place. They're really vulnerable. And we see huge problems with people's personal data, their privacy being invaded, and maybe even their data being locked up and encrypted because IoT manufacturers don't spend enough time looking at security.
for a few weeks now, and it is an amazing product. It is so simple to use. All you have to do is just connect the device to your modem and download the app to your phone, and can pretty much control it from anywhere.
We can get this on Lazada now. That's amazing. Okay, guys, that's just one of the solutions. Remember, now even Ola, who comes from Audra, has already told us and reminded us, relationships first, then the technology after that. So really pay attention, guys. This is not the panacea. Ola, thank you very much for that sharing about what can Audra do to help us in these difficult times. I'd like to really drag it back to Teacher Ken to really find out, like, what do you think after your experience of dealing with children? How can we help each other as parents? How do we manage this situation? What are your observations as an educator?
Right. Thank you, Dr. Winston, and thank you, Ola. Thank you to the rest of my very, very esteemed panel over here. I'm enjoying myself thoroughly this evening and getting a lot of questions in the chat. So, but let me go and touch on something which Dr. Winston said earlier, which really, really is a testament to his experience and his expertise. Yeah, Dr. Winston is absolutely correct. For Jane's case, it was multifactorial. There was something else going in the background. And what was going on in the background was that Jane's parents were viciously arguing every night. Jane's father was really, really stressed because his income was under siege due to the MCO, and he was just lashing out at everyone. He was lashing out at his wife. He was lashing out at his children, and so one of the mechanisms children have to go and deal with all of this is to go and escape. They need an escape mechanism. So now, what I'm about to say here is assuming you have already done all your due diligence and you have eliminated everything else. So what I'm saying is, okay, let's say your child has no interest in studies. I'm already assuming that you have ensured that the teacher is not the problem. You have already made sure that he has a comfortable place to study. You already made sure that he is not being disturbed by his siblings during online class. So I'm going to go on the assumption that it is not parents arguing, it is not the teacher who is the problem, it's not the environment which is the problem. Let's talk about what we can do as parents to really help guide our children out of this overuse and addiction. Now, when I remember this very, very clearly, when I was a very young and foolish educator. Nowadays, I'm an old and foolish educator, but when I was a young and foolish educator, parents would always come to me and they would say, Teacher Ken, my kids are really addicted to this game. What can I do? And I always tell them the same thing, which is what I read, right? Put paper into their hands. No matter what, it can be a comic, it can be a magazine, it can be a novel, it can be a storybook, just get paper into their hands. And oh my goodness, guys, that was the most naive advice I could ever give anyone. Why? It is because paper is no competition at all to the apps and the games you have out there. Like so many of you in the comments, and like Catherine has mentioned, and Ola as well, you know, it is true. Social media platforms and software developers have addiction in mind when they begin their design process. All these apps and games are designed to get your serotonin, your dopamine, as Catherine has already mentioned, up to really, really high levels. Think about it, all right? You are asking a child to compete, to go and compare a novel to a game which has flashes of lights and tinkling coin sounds and level up fireworks every time you get a minor achievement in the game. How can that even remotely compare? And therefore, when I told my parents back then, get paper into their hands, it was very naive advice. It didn't work. Now, I'm not going to go into the research and I'm not going to go into the experts, but most experts nowadays agree the best way to get rid of an unhelpful habit, I don't want to say a bad habit, the best way to get rid of an unhelpful habit is to replace it with a healthier one. right? If you were to ask any smoker who is trying to go cold turkey, they will tell you that it's extremely difficult. Go for chewing gum instead, or go for nicotine patch instead, they may say, right? And here's the thing, guys, okay? Really, really, really. If you are serious about getting your children off internet addiction or gaming addiction, you have to walk the talk. Now, a very wise educator in this country, her name is Bonda, right? She is the founder of many of Malaysia's daycare centers. She once told me this, and it absolutely coincides with my understanding and my study. Kanak-kanak adalah cerminan ibu bapanya, which is what Catherine said as well. We are very much the reflection of our parents and our educators and our guardians. Now, what is the message we are sending our children if we come back from a long day of work and we immediately collapse onto the sofa, very negative energy, and we are instantly on our phones? And then in the same breath, we are telling them, why aren't you studying? Why are you playing? How can that be convincing? No, we have to go and look at something else, right? So the best way to start really is to go and set aside some time to read with your children every day. Half an hour reading time, no devices. I think Kat has something to go and say on this as well. I'll let her elaborate on it. But really, set some time aside to read together with your children. For me, I have 2 children. I'm a single parent. I take care of the 2 of them. I cook a lot with them. And they have developed a love for cooking. They have developed a lot of other skills. And I think that this is one of the ways you can start to really get them, to ease them off the addiction. However, at the end of the day, it really comes back to goals, to where your children want to be. Now, when children, or when adults for that matter, find a worthy goal, when they know where they are going, they start something very, very wonderful. And this thing is called self-love. You will start to go and ask yourself, spending so much time on this app, on this game, does it serve me towards my end goal? But children who are addicted and they do not get enough attention and guidance from their parents, they do not have this direction. And so another thing I would really, really encourage everyone here today is to really spend some time developing goals together with your children. When they know where they are headed, then slowly they will realize that gaming and negative interactions on the internet are not really serving them towards that end goal. Okay, I think I'll hand it back over to Dr. Winston. I hope that answered a few of the questions as well in the chat.
Yeah, I think that was fantastic, Teacher Ken. So let's see, role model good behavior, replace a bad habit with a good one, really like that one. And then spend time with your kids, part 1, setting goals so that develops a sense of investment. I'm going to add the word investment into yourself and that self-love. Beautiful connections going on over there. Catherine, can you tell us what you did as well? Because I think there's some segue going, it's going to dovetail between what Teacher Ken said and what you're going to share, I think.
Dr. Vincent, all of you, Teacher Ken, Catherine, Ola, and yourself, you all speak so well. My parenting of 14 years, I think you all have summarized it in a nutshell in a very good, all the learnings I've collected is more or less touched here. So just a quick one. I agree so much. It's the love, the time that we can give our children. Nobody knows our kid more than ourselves, whether it's gadget addiction or anything else. So we know what action to take. And the important thing is it has to be immediate. It cannot be tomorrow. If something happens today, we find the best time and talk to them in private, mutual respect, have to seek to understand why they are doing this. And we have to be interested in what they're doing, learn about their games, even though I never knew how, I cannot play, but at least show some interest to learn and take the opportunity to highlight the safety about the precautions that they have to take, the danger of exposing personal information. So it's not a one-time education, as what Catherine said. It's many times keep reminding them about awareness of the safety measures. We take responsibility and be role model. In my house, what we actually implement is between 6 to 8 p.m. is a no gadget time. So my children, 6 to 8, all will run down and they have nothing more to do than to engage, talk to each other, play, cook. So 6 to 8 every day. And it's been a culture in the family now. I'm glad we did it earlier. We started this. And the other thing is we educate them. We teach them that during meal time, no gadgets. And when during talking time, whether it's meal or not eating, when someone is talking to you, when mom and dad is talking to you, all gadgets down. You may be playing a very important game, you're going to strike a goal, you have to stop because you have to have the eye contact, and we want to make sure that we understand each other. And same goes to me. If I pick them from school, the moment they hop into the car, gadget down. For me, my phone is down. Even though if I'm not driving, I'm waiting for another kid, but I will just role model. They are important to me. I put my gadget down. So they reciprocate. So actually, I have so much to share, but I'm mindful of the time. So Dr. Vincent, I will stop here.
Thanks a lot, Kat. You know, love can't be replaced. You know, the love that you give as a parent just can't be replaced. And you know, the more we try and give this over to screens and gadgets, the more mistakes we're going to keep on making. Absolutely love what you shared in the role modeling, educating them, good manners with games, no screen time periods, blocks of time, secret time, perhaps you want to call it. Maybe I'll wrap up with what we believe in the school. We believe that as a school, we deal with a lot of children, and we need to make sure that there are boundaries. There are boundaries about what's acceptable and what isn't. And as a basic stance, the kids need to know those baseline boundaries. Once you establish that, and you need to establish that early, you need to establish that explicitly. It's not an implied boundaries. You don't get to scold a kid later for jumping onto a certain site he shouldn't be on after the fact, and then tell him, oh, you shouldn't have done that. No, sorry. You need to establish these boundaries long before, in agreement with the child, with all of your children, so that they understand. And then when they make the mistake, don't go smacking them over the hand and tell them, oh, you're such a bad person, before breaking the rules. Expect it to happen. If we truly believe that our children learn by making mistakes and keep on and falling down and getting up each time, we need to encourage them to fail well, fail fast, and fail forward repeatedly. When they fall down, and they will fall down, they will get on that pornographic site by accident, they will play too many games. What is our response? Is our response to punish them in that punitive sort of way, smack them on the hand, take away things, scream and yell? Is that how we support people? Or is it to nurture and say, you have now what, buddy? What are you going to do? Come on, I know that you can get out of this. That's a word called positive expectations. That's pedagogy. That's the belief that you, this child, whoever I'm talking to, you can and will succeed. And that's what our teachers practice with our kids. It's one of the most powerful things we can help our kids grow out of. It's not about where they are right now. It's about where they're going to. And if we truly believe we can help our kids grow, we have to practice that by saying those words with our mouth. How often have you ever stared at your child in the eyes, blank right into the eyes, and said, I know that you made a mistake. Yeah, it's okay. But I truly believe that you can and will succeed. Just take some time. You just got to bruise yourself a couple more times, but it's okay because I'm here with you. How many times have we done that? Can you do that with your kid? That's probably one of the most powerful things I would suggest any parent practices doing. Go to the mirror, practice saying those words, and then find just wait for the opportunity. You know, this is all about waiting for that opportunity to get to your kid when he makes a mistake and says, you know what, I've been practicing this all evening, I'm going to give it to you. I believe that. Yeah. And you just watch their face at that moment. That's my practical tip to all of you parents from educators, and what really works for us to help our kids get out of the rut. It doesn't matter how many times they fall in. Our job is to lift them up, not beat them down. So whatever we do, don't beat them down. But as always, it always helps to have a little safety net around the house. And that safety net is our little friend, Audra. Now, there are questions. I think we only have time to take 2 questions because we've run 9:08. I'm going to try and finish this up by 9:20, but there's a lot of conversation. Sukyan, Ms. Chan, could you throw us 2 questions?
Yep. Okay. Thank you, Dr. Vincent. So there's a question here. This is from a teenager who said that he's addicted to games by playing 8 hours a day. So how do I stop myself? The student have other hobbies, such as drawing, piano, and other sports like football, badminton, and violin. So the question really is, how do I stop? Because I can't live without the iPad. So this is how the child feels.
From the perspective of a child, could we get 2 quick responses coming through from Catherine and Teacher Kian? Catherine, maybe you can start us off.
I think I would just echo what Teacher Kian said earlier on the chat. You know, it's about what do you want? What do you truly want? And if you truly want to be responsible and to be in control of your gadget and not let your gadget control you, then you have to actively do that. Tell yourself that you are the one in power. It's not your iPad that's the one in power. So if you do not want to do it, you can choose not to.
Who the boss?
Exactly.
But I think it's one more thing, because I think this person that has acknowledged that has 8 hours is too much time is a very good first step, and be able to acknowledge that and publicly here in our forum, I think is amazing. You're on the right track because you know that something needs to be changed, but you need to enforce it in the right way, and I applaud you. Very, very good.
I'd like to share a little bit from what my kids are doing. I get them alarm clocks dedicated to remind themselves. So if you know you have an issue, then you set the timer to go off to stop yourself. And it works for both my children, particularly the younger one, Megan, who is 11.
Oh, yeah.
Alarm clock.
And don't let the alarm clock be the iPad. That's just asking for disaster. Teacher Ken, do you want to throw something in there as well?
I think Catherine and Ola and Kat really wrapped up really well. But here's what I want to go and say to you, Azaya, I think. All right. You are demonstrating a lot of mindfulness for someone of your age. So that is definitely the first thing you have to pat yourself on the back on. Now, I'm going to challenge you here. What do you want to be? Because if you know exactly where you're headed, are you sure that this is bad for you? You see, I'm taking a very contrary approach here. Yeah. If you know exactly where you're headed, are you sure that this is bad for you? Now, let's assume that this is bad for you. Then, if you already know it is bad for you, have another thought. What is good for you then? If you cannot answer where you're headed to, that's where I suggest you start. Have a deep conversation with your parents. Tell them, hey, can you help me find where I want to end up? Can you bring me to entrepreneur fairs? Can you show me biographies of different people from different industries, how they made it, what differences are they making in the world? So that's a great place to start. If you know where you're headed to, then automatically you will realize if things in your life are not serving you. Okay, so that's the theory, all right? Now, here's a very practical tip, which all of you can immediately use. Get a rubber band and wear it around your hand. Get a rubber band and wear it around your hand. whenever you know that you're thinking of something which you shouldn't be thinking about. Let's say you're studying and you're thinking about PUBG, getting chicken with winner chicken dinner. Straight away slap yourself with the rubber band. Or if you don't want to slap yourself, snap yourself with a rubber band, or take the rubber band off and put it on the other hand. This will really, really, really help your mental discipline and fortitude. Right, so back to you, Dr. Winston. I hope that answered the question. Yep.
I tried that one before. That stings. Especially the skin over here, that really stings, guys. But it does shake you up a lot. It's pretty cool. So my catch for you, Isaac, I think it's Isaac or Isaiah. I think it's Isaiah. I saw your name over there. My suggestion is, chances are, if you're saying, this is a problem, you're not happy about this. And if you're not happy about this, you're not feeling very good about yourself. And chances are there's a pattern going on behind this. My suggestion, invest in yourself. And then this comes around the same concept as caring for yourself, love yourself. When I put on a jacket and I put on a shirt and I go to school, I hate wearing a jacket. It's hot as heck. But you know what? When I put on a jacket, I feel 10 times smarter. And I do it because I want to love myself. I want to feel good that day. When I put on a shirt that has yellow and pink and everybody says, that's crazy, I say, I don't really care because I love myself right now. I'm going to do something that make me feel good. And I'm going to invest time to find a shirt that I like because that's good for me. I'm going to invest time to exercise because I like the way I feel. Invest time in yourself and make yourself feel fantastic. Love yourself, care for yourself. Once you start caring for yourself, you'll very quickly realize that there are other things I'd rather be doing than playing games right now because I don't really feel loved anymore. The games don't know how to love you very much. They only love your money. All right. Thank you very much for your responses, guys. Super awesome. Can we take one more question, Mrs. Chan?
I am torn. There's so many questions. Let's just perhaps let me just quickly look at can we take two, Dr. Vincent?
Yeah, go for it. I'm worried about people.
Okay. Well, let me just take it from Miss Cathy. So her concern is with the learning attitude. So this is where a child does things in a rush, right? So it is job done, but not done well. So her question is then, how could she improve the learning attitude as a working mother or mother who has to manage many things at the same time? And I just want to couple that with RC's comments that, sometimes teens can't help themselves. So what can we do to help them if, they may not be able to help themselves, although they may know that this is not the way I should be, but my fingers are out of control at the moment, so what can be done? Thank you.
It doesn't apply only to the youth, it applies to the parents too.
Thanks.
Katerina, actually, do you want to kick us off with that one? Because, this is a mom asking for help and you're a mom.
I will first need to understand why the child is rushing through. My experience is once my child was rushing through because she wants to use her gadget. So what I would do is then we actually all this requires time. It's not a button where you click and it's fixed. So you need to, again, immediately, don't delay, but find the right time within the day to sit down with her. And what I did last time, me and my husband, we explained to our children that you only have 24 hours a day, minus the sleeping time, this much left. And from that amount of waking time, we make it very simple. We ask them what are their priorities. Number one, they want to spend time leisure. Leisure includes gaming, internet, all those leisure. And we fully agree. Number two, family time. To us is dining outside, grocery shopping with us. They agree. they like that idea. They want to continue with that. And the last one is knowledge acquisition. And we think that's very important. And again, this is a process where you have to help them understand where they want to go. I think just now you spoke about it. So these three key items, leisure, family time, and knowledge acquisition, you only have that amount of time a day to spend on these three. So let's sit down and agree on how much you want to allocate on each, the percentage you want. Then you derive the hours from the percentage, and it has to come from them, not us. Once they agree upon that, then we help them to organize their activities to make sure that it satisfy the allocation that they want to achieve. So with that, then she doesn't need to rush to finish her work because she wants to rush to use her iPad, because she knows that at the back of her mind, all are allocated properly. She will have ample time for everything, and there is an emphasis on her knowledge acquisition.
That's fantastic. That actually sounds so similar to what we do in the IB, where there are shared agreements in classrooms. You don't just dump rules on people and say, you can't do this, you can't do that. We need to set a shared agreement in a classroom before we start the class. This is how you ask a question. You raise your hand. You don't interrupt people. In a similar format, you're creating a shared agreement with your daughter, having that important conversation before the fact, creating that transparency. So there's no need to rush, because I know my mom is going to respect me. She already had this conversation with me. Beautiful. How about the rest of you guys?
Can I chime in? I particularly got intrigued by RC Chinatown's comment. No, sorry, not comment, a question on whether teens can control themselves or not, right? And this is very interesting because, you see, we know the physical changes that happen when children move into teenhood, right? And we also know of the emotional changes that occur, and that can also cause outbursts and rage and all these. But in truth, I feel that all these negative views on teenagers, on these youth, isn't of any help, because it just reinforces for them. They would also think that I am problematic, I am emotional, I am angry, and I am alone. And that is what we have to shift. That is the thought or the misconception that we have to shift. Because in reality, if we look at it, every time a teenager who's frustrated, say you just take the phone away and you say, no, it's too much screen time, you take the phone away without explaining. This is an example where you do not explain. They're definitely going to ask, why, but why, how come, what about you? And all these questions come. And instead of looking at it as defensive, we can shift it and see maybe they just have an acute sense of justice and they want justice. Or maybe they're just curious and they just want to learn more. They want to be understood. Because at this age, not only do they have so much of altruism and they want to express themselves so badly, and also the sense of justice that I mentioned, but they also have that eagerness to be a part of something. They want to be a part of the family, for example. They want to be seen. They want to feel seen and heard. And that is why it is so important, exactly what Kat said, it is so, so important for parents to assure from young that, we are on your side. It's just it's just as simple as that. It's not a parent versus child thing. Parents are on the children's side, and we are doing this together. And I'd just like to finish off with a quote which was used widely during UNICEF's regional report for our region. They recently published a report called Our Lives Online, and it was basically about children and their social media use. And Malaysia was 1 out of 5 of the featured countries that they conducted the research on. It's on their website. But what the very attractive quote that they used to promote the report was, "The strictest parents create the sneakiest children." And that's why it is so important for parents to say that, hey, I'm your friend and I am on your side. I am not against you. I want to understand you. I want to be your friend and I want to be on your side. And that is why, exactly what Ola said, relationships come first. And that is, I think that is what Audra's intention is. Ultimately, it is to create a healthy, digitally well family. And that comes along with conversation, with a process of accompaniment, and only then this shield around the house would serve to its best ability.
Absolutely. You know, thank you very much for that. Ola, do you want to chime in? You just got called out there.
No, it's not about that. I would like to address all the adults in this chat group. And I say, my experience in the few months, I never use Facebook. Okay, never normally. I have a very close Facebook friends only from my university time. So I don't have my parents, I don't have friends from day-to-day time here and so forth, only my university friends that are around the world. Because I was on a very small university, we were together every day, we became like a family. They can understand me, I can understand them in any situation. But now I started a few weeks back. I was starting watching America Got Talent or something. And Facebook is very, very smart. I see one thing, I like it, right? Suddenly there is many, many of them. And suddenly I don't realize that 3 hours later, I've been sitting watching different music performances. So imagine me as a parent that I, are in internet technology, I am in this space, can so easily be drawn the other direction so quickly. So imagine your children that we say that, oh, we are punish them, or we are saying, no, you cannot do this, you cannot do that. We are the example for our children. And if we can slide so fast the other way, that is a very important reminder to when you have the dialogue with your kids, because we are not better in the sense of how to utilize the internet, except that we are a little bit older, in my view.
Absolutely, absolutely, Ola. Teacher Kat?
Right, so just going to make this a very quick one, but I will speak directly to Katie and RC Chinatown here. And maybe if I have a bit of time, I will go and expand upon what Ola said just now, which is super duper important, guys. But let's see if we have the time. Okay, so now, Katie, the reason why your girl is trying to rush her homework, this is something we see a lot as educators, is because they know they have to do the work before they can play, right? Maybe it is an informal rule in your house, or maybe it's even a formal rule. I have to finish the work, then I get to play. But their mind is not on the work because their mind is on the play. So they will just do whatever it takes to go and satisfy the bare minimum requirements, not learn anything in the process, just so that they can get to playing. And so now, why does this happen? This goes back to because they do not understand what is the point of homework. Now, I'm not a big believer of homework, but the point remains. What's the point of revision? What's the point of studying? What's the point of getting good results? You see, from their point of view, they know how to be happy because they know how to get that dopamine rush. They know how to get the serotonin rush, and that's by playing games. They do not understand the concept of delayed gratification anymore, right? What's delayed gratification? Delayed gratification is what we are all doing on a daily basis. We sacrifice enjoyment today for the promise of a better future. In other words, we work today so that we get salary at the end of the month, right? But kids, they do not understand that point very well anymore because they know how to become, they know how to get that high. They know how to get that dopamine rush by playing games. They do not understand why doing the homework or studying or revising is very, very important. They don't see a linkage between doing the homework and achieving their goals. So now it comes back to this question. I've said it many times, okay? Marketing is really about, marketing is a test of how well you know your clients. Parenting is really a test of how well you know your children. It really is that at the end of the day. So now, what are your children's goals? If you can link the homework they're doing today to how it will help them achieve their goals, it will go a long way. The problem is many of our children do not have well-defined goals, if they have goals at all. So now here is an exercise which I always give to my clients. History. Why do we study history? So put yourself in the shoes of the syllabus planner. Why do we teach our children history? Very hard, right? If your kid comes and challenges you and says, Mom, why do I study history? How will it help me in my journey to become a YouTuber? How will it help me in my journey to become an engineer? These are the type of deep conversations you need to have, first of all, with yourself. Why am I asking my kid to excel in history? Then you'll be able to find the answer. Why do you need to do your homework every day? It is for you. And you need to be very skilled in linking that to their goals. All right. For example, let me give you some words. Okay. You can try saying, okay, we need to study history because history is one of the best ways for you to improve your memory. You want to be the world's best engineer, right? Memory is going to be a very useful skill in your journey as an engineer. All right. For example, all right. Yep. So I hope that answers your question, Katie. And I'll hand it back to you, Dr. Vincent.
That's excellent. Excellent conversations, everybody. My takeaways are incredible here, and I just want to add one thing for you, RC. You know, there's something called a victim triangle. Okay, and imagine 3 dots in a triangle. One's called victim, one's called aggressor, and the other one's called hero. Very often, when we try and blame things, that person, that boy, I didn't do well in class because that boy was disturbing me. I couldn't study properly because the TV was on. I couldn't do this because that. Essentially, what happens a lot of the time is we place ourselves into this wonderful triangle called the victim's triangle. And we put ourselves in the position of the victim. And then we put an aggressor, some evil thing or person that's doing stuff to me. It's not in my control. And then there has to be a hero. You're inviting people to save me. We do this with our counselors and in some of our coaching programs inside the school. With our kids, and what we encourage people to consider is, are these 3 things really outside, and are you really the victim, or are all 3 in you? You are all at the same time the victim, the aggressor, and the hero. Everything is in you. That entire story is your story, and you choose how you want to play this out. You either continue playing the story, and you know how this is going to work out. You're going to invite a hero to come and save you every time. But what if one day there's no hero to come? Or you just step outside the story, my friend, and you write a new story. You write your story and start with what you want to do. Create your story. That would be something that we do with our kids in our school as well. That maybe help you a little bit. Now, we have 2 questions through. Do we really have time for a third? Because it's like 9:31. I'm so worried everybody's going to be dying by now.
Dr. Vincent,
what do you think, guys?
Can we have a quick wrap up? Because the parent asked about Audra. See, these days, kids are smarter than parents with regards to screens. I'm told that kids can outsmart any home shields that is put in. So how secure exactly is Audra compared with other products? I'm curious about this myself, so please let me ask this question.
Well, this is like throwing down the glove right at you. You've got to defend yourself now.
Yeah, it's very right, the question. Many times our children teaches us how to use the internet, or how to set up a mobile phone, or how to set up whatever gadget in the house. That's very correct. But since this product is a gateway product, meaning it controls all the devices in the house, and the smart brain sits in the cloud. So you as a parent will have the application that you control and set the different rules. So for an example, you can set the rules that, for an example, different times for your kids to utilize it, because it has all the data of the device onto this platform. So you set the rules and you can monitor. I'm not saying monitor in the way of following exactly which website they go to, but you can follow, for an example, say you block sexual content websites. And then you can see how many times they tried to go to a certain category. In this case, adult website, for an example. The importance of the website normally is not the most important. It's at the time if my child has tried, or my son has tried 1,600 times in 1 month to go to blocked category websites of sexual content. I understand and get a quick view what's going on in my child's digital space. And I can then start the dialogue immediately with my son about sexual content websites, the good things, that is not many, the bad things, and why I am blocking them for that person, for an example. Many times, for an example, maybe they have VPN connections and so on that many utilizes. And Audra in itself, we also have another product called Audra Go, where we actually put an application on the phone that you control and can monitor, and they cannot delete the application without having you from your side deleting it. That maybe helps a little bit in the sense of, so when they even leave the house, because Audra protects the internet in your house, but when they leave, for an example, outside of your home, there is a way for you actually to then see when they are on other mobile networks or Wi-Fi and other places, and follow the same rules that you have set in your home. So the rules you set in your home can follow them where they go on their devices. Maybe that gives a little bit of the answer.
You know, I Catherine, about not going down the road of ring fencing and putting restrictions everywhere, but I would definitely say there are moments when, as a parent, you got to make a very hard call and say, this is too much. You are causing danger. You're causing harm to yourself, and we need to step in with something drastic to create a safe space. I think there's a time and place for everything, including a gun and a handcuff. You don't want to use it all the time. It's not your first port of call, but there is a time and place for these things. And if you use it wisely and intelligently, it goes very, very far. So thank you very much for that. Okay. So Mrs. Chan, no more questions. Yeah. Okay.
No more. Yes, no more.
Okay. So
Just wrap it
we're
up.
going to
Yeah.
stop here. I am very happy to announce that only 2 of our listeners actually left us, even though we went about half an hour over time. You guys are very, very amazing. Thank you very much for holding your attention span so much. My speakers, my panel, you guys are astounding. That was a really fun conversation about a lot of really interesting things. I've written down my own notes because I got to learn. I'm a dad too. I want to thank Audra for working with us to put up this webinar. And I want to remind everybody, there's another webinar happening on Saturday as well. And we're going to go into a little bit more about what we can do with regards to the internet issue as well. So join us again on Saturday for that second session, and it's going to be very interesting. Thank you very much, everybody. Be safe in this MCO, and I pray we all have a bright and wonderful future ahead of us.